things that happen to you, use them as tools, as examples of how not to do things and then how to do things. You can use that as your own personal textbook example of what went wrong and why, or what went right and why, and then just keep amalgamating it and using it and going forward with it. So anyway, so I basically realised then that it wasn't going to go anywhere that I wanted to. So I sort of thought, well, I'm just going to sort of go along with this and try and keep to as close to the free man movement as I can, the free man method as I can. At the same time as trying to make it fluid, so she was moving on with the matter and just sort of play it by ear. And she said, well, what I'd like you to do now is, because I hadn't filled out a form that basically said ways, how can you pay the court? It was about how I could pay the court, ways I could pay the court, financial circumstances. She said, as I hadn't filled out one of those, she would need to put me on oath and find out about my financial circumstances. I could see the fine wasn't going to be quashed that day, so I thought, well, I'll go along with this and see what I can do within it. So I said, well, what does that entail exactly? I said, I'm happy to do that if I understand fully what that means. And she said, well, you're going to come into the witness box, you're going to swear an oath to tell the truth, and then we're going to just ask questions about financial circumstances. I said, right. She said, will you enter the witness box? I said, I will enter the witness box under the condition that I enter there as a flesh and blood human being and not as a vessel, which they very swiftly replied yes to. So I have them there on record saying that I entered that box as a flesh and blood human being and not as an empty vessel. So therefore I should have been under common law. Anything addressed to me that was not common law would instantly be invalid. Well, that's the way I see it. Obviously that's up for discussion and dispute. So I went to the box, I swore on the Bible. I opted for the Bible rather than from a piece of paper statement. As the clerk or usher tried to take the Bible away from me, I said, I'll keep that, thank you. I kept it to me. I just remembered it from a Robert Menard thing. I didn't really get to use it to its full force and effect. The judge basically stated, well, she asked me questions about how I got a full-time job and this and that and the other, and I didn't really lie. I didn't really tell the whole truth. The way I see it is there's several ways to tell the truth. You never actually have to lie, ever. if there's a lesson I can teach you on this YouTube video, that's it. You never ever have to lie ever in your entire life, but there are always several ways to tell the truth, the same truth. And as long as you can find the best way to tell the truth that fits, you never have to utter a lie whatsoever, and it will still go in your favour. Then she said, so what I'm going to do is, the court's got the power of the fine now, not the fines officer, so we can do more severe things to you, basically clamp your car, throw you in prison, although I'd like to see them chuck me in prison for 90 quid. If it got to that state, that would just validate everything I've been saying to people, really, so, about how the state of the nation is going. So in a way it would be a dark cloud with a silver lining to it. She said I had 28 days to pay, come up with the money. She made sure that, very nice of her, made sure that it fell after I get paid with my job, so definitely ensuring, she'd do me a favour then. And I said, well, how do I convene a court to dispute the actual fine itself? And she just kept glazing over with lingo I can't even remember nor know the meaning to. And I said, right. I said, so was this already a pre-decided case? I said, because and she was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, when I came in here, had you already decided that I was going to pay the fine and it was just a case of how and when, or did you ever have the power to quash the £90 fine? And she said no. Well, she was very reluctant to say no, she couldn't quash the fine, because she could dismiss it under common law. And I said that to her. I said, well, I mean, dismiss it under common law. And she was like, no. She answered affirmative no to dismissing it under common law. But she was a bit hesitant in saying no overall. But she said, right, so I understood that. I said, well, is this a court de facto or is it a court de jure? And she said, well, if I knew what those meant, I'd tell you. I was very surprised about that. You'd think a judge would know what a court de jure and a court de facto. I said, well, a court de facto is a court fact, point fact. I said a court de jure is a common law court. And she was like, oh right, well, she just said no. She didn't really answer the question, she just said no. How do you answer a question like that with a no? It's not a yes or no answer question. And then, anything else? Oh yeah, one thing I'd just like to know, before I went into the witness box, I said, the judge asked me what relevance of all these points from that I read from the letter were, you know, and I said, well, you know, I stand before you in my eyes, and it's my understanding that I am here standing under common law. I am a flesh and blood human being, I'm not a person. The name to which this case is addressed to is a fictional entity, it's a person, it's a fictional legal fiction. She didn't dispute it at all. She didn't say anything, she just didn't dispute it. I said, and I've done no harm, I've caused no harm, I've caused no loss, and I've not defrauded anybody, so I've not really committed a crime. Now, the one thing I wanted to note on this was that in front of the judge, she had, like, the judge sat on her in a box, and then down below there was, I think she was taking notes. I don't think she was doing a full recorder, whether she was a full recorder. I'm not sure whether she was a judge's assistant, I don't know. She was nodding her head and smiling at me, like she understood, she got what I was doing and what I was about. She might not, whether or not she actually knew about the lawful rebellion movement, or whether she just instinctively understood what it was I was saying, I don't know, but it made me feel better about myself being there. It made me feel like, now maybe that was a ploy, maybe that was a trap, maybe that was her job to make me feel more relaxed and more comfortable. Who knows? But I do genuinely think that she connected with what I was saying and trying to say. And when I was in the box and I took hold of the Bible and asked to keep hold of the Bible, again she grinned, nodded her head, and like wrote something down on her notes. And so I didn't know what to make of it, but I felt friendship from her, I felt warmth from her, you know what I mean? She was a sort of like a little glowing warmth entity in that room, and I was very grateful for it, to be honest with you. It did actually relax me and put me a bit more at ease. And once I knew that sort of I wasn't there for disputing the original fine anymore like I thought I was there in fact for disputing an increase of the fine, and the fines officer at a later point. So I wasn't even there for the original offence. The original offence, it's like the original offence never even existed. I'm on to new and interesting offences now that have been committed as a result of the process I've been going to with the original offence, if you get what I mean. That's how ludicrous this all gets, you know what I mean? It's a tongue twister for the mind and for the tongue. But that's the game they play, isn't it? That's how they like it. So basically I just sort of deflated myself and thought, right, well, I'll just sail along with this and make it known that I consider myself to be a free man and act in that attitude regardless of whether what I say or not is legally or lawfully valid. Just present myself in my demeanour and in the way I carry myself and the way I talk and what I say in that manner. And at least in that capacity I can represent the movement, and at least in that capacity I can feel good, better within myself. Because essentially you are what you believe you are. So if you believe you're a free man, you're a free man. You know, if you believe you're a slave, you're a slave. So all these people whose hearts are in the right place saying, you know, oh, we're slaves, we have to do that, that's what you're going to be.